live stream segment of Mikasa Sukasa. And of course, as always, I am your humble host, Niko House. Today we're going to cover a couple of things. First, we are going to talk about the Venezuelan conflict in the context of Ilhan Omar and Mike Pence. So Mike Pence had some choice words for Ilhan. Some words that I'm not exactly sure he thought through completely before he said them on live television. So, Ilhan made some comments about the Venezuela conflict. And when it comes to almost every situation as far as regime change is concerned, she's been getting it right. She's been doing a damn good job when it comes to regime change thus far. Been one of the allies on that front. She spoke out against Yemen just as ferociously as she spoke out against Venezuelan regime change, and regime change all throughout South America and Africa. So I want to read to you the article from The Hill. Vice President Mike Pence blasted Representative Ilhan Omar on Friday over her comments warning against U.S. military involvement in Venezuela's political turmoil. During an interview with Fox News, Pence was asked by anchor Sandra Smith why he chose to respond to Omar's claim that the United States helped lead the devastation in Venezuela in a post on Twitter. And he answered, because the Congresswoman doesn't know what she's talking about. He goes on to say, Nicolas Maduro is a socialist dictator who has taken what was once one of the most prosperous nations in this hemisphere and brought it literally to a level of deprivation and oppression and poverty that we have never seen. There's so much wrong with that. But let's continue. He said, I'm not making this up, okay? This is a verbatim quote. All that stuff happened in Venezuela, that's not the result of U.S. policies. Bruh. Oh my God. Oh my, I don't really know I don't know where to start. Where do we start here? I don't know. I'm just trying to. Okay, so let's go to Ilhan's comments. The U.S. helped lead the devastation in Venezuela. Do I have to explain this again? Can I make it short for everybody who's here? Okay, so yes, that's a fact. They were on the come up when Hugo Chavez was there, and then we sanctioned the hell out of them because Hugo Chavez refused to let the bankers and the big corporations, aka the oligarchy, control the oil supply. And then when Hugo Chavez was trying to diversify their economy, because he knows as well as anyone else, except for America apparently, that oil cannot be the main economic tool of growth there, you got to do something about that. But that you can't have a lot of oil and ambition. Okay, you can't have a lot of oil and be economically ambitious when you're in the United States backyard. Just like Brazil wasn't allowed to have a lot of sugarcane and the entire Amazonian area and decide they were going to be economically ambitious. So we got to cripple your economy, you know. You got to throw some sanctions on you and then blame you for when you, of course, eventually suffer the results of those sanctions. So that's how that happened. So Ilhan Omar is actually and factually correct, 100%. But let's go to Mike Pence comments, which is they're even more interesting. Okay, these comments are emblematic of the deepest level of sheer stupidity and irony. I mean, sheer stupidity. Because I want you to think about something. He says, when he said, why did you respond to Ilhan Omar's comments on Twitter? And his response is, because the Congresswoman does not know what she is talking about. Okay? Y'all. He says, Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, a name of what we would call ethnic descent, most specifically Muslim descent. Okay? Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, the Muslim hijabi Somali refugee, okay? The Muslim hijabi Somali refugee displaced because of controversies that the United States policies of interventionism caused, doesn't know about the results of U.S. imperialism, y'all. Bruh. These people, listen, my motto, what's my motto? You don't have to be smart. You don't have to be intelligent to be a politician and to make it in America, people. In fact, it might hinder you from achieving your goals if you're intelligent, especially when it comes to politics, which is proven by the fact that somebody somewhere thought that Mike Pence has deserved to be a politician for this damn long. You gonna sit here in front of God and everybody, your God, not my God. My God is a loving God, is a peaceful God. Your God is apparently fucking crazy, okay? And sit here and tell once again, a Somali Muslim refugee who is a refugee because of the consequences of U.S. interventionism, that she has no idea what she is talking about when it comes to the consequences of U.S. interventionism. Pence, listen, I don't say this often because I don't like to be too divisive on my channel. Okay, that's a lie. I don't mind being divisive, but I don't like being unnecessarily divisive. But this is one of them times where I just got to sit your white ass down somewhere, dog. You come from butt crack of Indiana. Your entire state was damn near economically obliterated because of another form of U.S. interventionism, aka NAFTA and other disastrous trade policies. But it seems to me that Ilhan has a little bit more of an understanding and a little bit more experience when it comes to understanding exactly what happens when the United States intervenes. We just don't tend to make shit better, Pence. We don't. And it's interesting to me as well that Mike Pence couldn't even, listen to that statement. What did he say about Maduro? Nicolas Maduro is a socialist dictator who has taken what was once one of the most prosperous nations in the world, or in the hemisphere, and brought it to literally to a level of deprivation and oppression and poverty that we have never seen. And that is not a result of U.S. policies. United States sanctions caused 40,000 deaths in Venezuela. That seems to be, and it's because of the poverty. It's because of the poverty. I don't know what what? Bruh, you hear how he said they were one of the most prosperous. He says socialist dictator Nicolas Maduro, who, by the way, was elected when Jimmy Carter said that Venezuela has the best election system in the world. Jimmy Carter said this. But he's a socialist dictator, okay? And he said they were one of the most prosperous nations in this hemisphere. And you know what? Mike Pence is right about that. Because after one of ours nearly destroyed Venezuela economically, this other guy got involved. And he stepped up His name was Hugo Chavez, and that man was what we would call a self-described socialist, people. And Mike Pence would be correct. Under Hugo Chavez, Venezuela became one of the most prosperous nations in the world. And as a matter of fact, because of that, we started sanctions on Venezuela. The reason that Maduro is being as demonized as he is right now isn't because his mustache is ugly. He kind of looks like Super Mario, and he might be a mean person. I don't know. I don't know the guy. It isn't because of any of that. It's because Hugo Chavez at the time had the unmitigated gall. He had the nerve to help his country be successful and stand up for the working class. And he also held television shows where he gave out stuff for free. Now, Hugo Chavez was a personality. He was a personality. But it cannot be denied, nor is it denied by any international entity outside of the United States and a couple of our imperialist little butt buddies, that what Hugo Chavez was able to do with that economy was amazing. And furthermore, what Maduro was trying to continue would have been amazing had the United States not stepped in. And why is that? Well, for the same reason that when Nicolas Maduro left the petrodollar, we put them on what at the time was called the Muslim ban list. But we didn't put the entire country on the Muslim ban list. Oh no. You know who we put on the Muslim ban list? We just put all of their diplomats. So basically, anyone who could negotiate peace militarily or economically between the United States and Venezuela, we put them on a list and basically said, you can't come and negotiate peace anymore. I'm not quite sure if they say they care about people so much, if they say they care about the economy, if they say, well, we just want to give them the food, we just want to make sure that why can't all parties sit down and why can't we just hug it out and let Guaido and bruh, hold up, hold the phone, bro. You put them on a Muslim ban list. Look this up. They put Venezuelan diplomats, anyone who can negotiate peace, on a ban list so that they couldn't sit down with Trump. Because we know how that works out. Every now and then, someone could, they could appeal to Trump's common sense. Every now and then. And they couldn't have that. Now, you can say what you will about Maduro. Like I said, I honestly don't know the man. I don't pretend, like when somebody asks me, well, is Assad an evil, brutal dictator? How am I supposed to know that? I know what the facts tell me. I don't know Assad. Well, you at least call him a war criminal. Has he stood in court? The only reason that people are using these words, and that Pence, for example, in that comment was using these buzzwords, brutal, socialist, dictator, blah, 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 is because that's how propaganda works. That's how it works. It's that simple. Do you understand that when the White House is giving briefings and then these news stations are giving briefings on what they are and are not supposed to say, they are told, you will say this phrase, these words over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, to the point where we don't even know what they mean anymore or why we're saying them. And then the public will be it's almost like I think it's called operant conditioning, where basically it's like a whistle is blown and we immediately react, to the point where a lot of people feel like they have to have a qualifier before they say we shouldn't intervene in Venezuela. Like, what's the point of you saying, well, I know Maduro's a brutal dictator? How do you know that? Based off of what? Well, CNN told me. I don't know. I don't know how else to tell y'all this other than the 50,000 ways I've already said this. Listen, people. Any time that CNN and Fox News and MSNBC and Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton and Mike Pence and Donald Trump all agree on the same thing, you should just assume that it's a fucking lie. You should. You should assume that it is a lie. Because when has there ever in the history of lying ass politicians has Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, Donald Trump, Mike Pence, CNN, MSNBC, Fox News all agreed on anything and it turned out to be the truth? Name me one single time, bruh. Name me one time. If you're going to tell me that, like, I have a nuanced discussion, not in the way where you're trying to qualify whether or not we should go to Venezuela, but if you want to have a nuanced discussion about maybe Maduro isn't the best leader based off of a policy, because there may be a better person who understands economic policy better. Well, that is a discussion that we can absolutely have. And I would love to go on a bullet point by bullet point debate about that and learn something new. And who would be the best alternative? Because guess what? We could literally do that about every single leader in history and it would be okay. But whenever someone says, well, maybe you ever think, because they're like, well, we shouldn't, like the qualifiers, like, I think that even though Maduro's a brutal dictator, we shouldn't invade Venezuela. Hold up. What? No. You can't start off your sentence by somebody is a brutal dictator as if it is an assumed true fact, because it's interesting. I don't ever hear from those type of people, the ones who basically are kind of waking up, but they're still uncomfortable with stepping out of that zone of normalcy that their friends surrounding them are still in, because they don't know exactly all the details, so they don't want to be critiqued from a lack of knowledge. And it's not necessarily their fault, so they feel like they have to say that qualifier, but you don't have to. You know what you tell them? Oh, if he's a brutal dictator, what did he do? Well, he did this, and this. And almost every single time you can literally say, that's a lie, that's a lie, that's a lie. And there's plenty of facts to prove that. I mean, I'm friends with people on the ground. Abby Martin is on point. But she's not even the only one. And not to mention, at the end of the day, when and ever have any of these people told us the truth? So I would be, if they just straight up admitted, we want to be there for oil, it has nothing to do with Nicolas Maduro, I would probably be more inclined to believe when somebody perhaps call him a dictator out of nowhere. Like, oh, why are you saying that? But that's not what's happening. We're seeing Maduro's a dictator. Oh shit, by the way, oil is there as well. But those two things are completely unrelated. We didn't start demonizing this man out of nowhere and then oil because we wanted all the oil and we wanted you to believe it. We just talked about this in another stream, actually. The stream that I did earlier, where I said you have to, if you've noticed something about regime change wars, and everything that, if you were raised in the States, in America, everything that every war, regime change, like the Cold War, which was, by the way, if you didn't know, a series, they always said we won the Cold War without ever firing a bullet. That is a motherfucking lie. Don't ever believe that shit. Millions of people died because of the Cold War. there was a series of regime change wars, and every single one of those wars, or conflicts even, whether it be Fidel Castro, for example, the only reason that there was an embargo on Cuba was because they were a surprising shining light against U.S. imperialism. That embargo was, yes, supposed to economically cripple Cuba, but that was actually not it. It was an embargo of information. It was an embargo of education, because even when we have issues with other nations, by the time that the information in the story is told to our school students, we have a dictator in place. We have a right-wing theocratic autocrat in place. So when you get the information, it's kind of like, yeah. I mean, the U.S. is right in invading that country. But the story of Cuba, the real story of Nelson Mandela in South Africa, the real story of Maurice Bishop in Grenada, those stories aren't allowed to be told because those are beacons of light against United States imperialism. See, with Fidel Castro, for example, we learn his name, and that's all we knew. Fidel Castro, Bay of Pigs, Stalin. Fidel Castro, Bay of Pigs, Stalin. Fidel Castro, Bay of Pigs, Stalin. Stalin's evil. Fidel Castro, was a communist, and communism is evil because of Stalin. We don't even learn about Karl Marx, but that's what we learn about in school, is that Stalin is the godfather of communism. That's what we're taught in schools. So before they could even get to telling you anything about Cuba, which, by the way, we really never learned anything about Cuba. We just, Fidel Castro's evil, Stalin. We don't associate in school Fidel Castro, Nelson Mandela, because Fidel Castro fought with Nelson Mandela against the United States. Because the United States was perpetuating the apartheid because our corporations had subsidiaries there, and we were working hand in hand with Great Britain. Because in case you don't know, if you ever heard of the Rhodes Scholarship was named after Cecil Rhodes, who was the reason that the war in South Africa started, and the reason that they were colonized, and the reason that they had the apartheid state. Like J.P. Morgan and Cecil Rhodes and Rothschild were butt buddies. That's why South Africa was a testing ground to see if they can make an Anglo-American colony around the world. Like, they wanted everybody who wasn't a white and Anglo-American to be speaking British English. And that's why South Africans, out of in a weird, because there's a lot of British colonies, or there's a lot of colonies that ended up taken over by Britain, but Jamaica didn't end up like South Africa, and some of the Philippines and India. But South Africa was the very, very first, this is exactly what we want to do. We want to make black people speak like us. We always hear the negatives and associate the negatives with the narrative of the person, but 99% of anyone I've ever met even knows who governed before Fidel Castro. And that was Batista, and Batista was an American puppet. But you have to manufacture that consent. That's where the embargo of information comes in. So we got a super chat. Oil for Goldman and Sachs, Texas refineries. Isn't that really it? Another corporate giant. It's also, to my understanding, about the Koch brothers. The Koch brothers are pushing this hard, which is why Marco Rubio is way out front on this. He's the Ben Carson of Latinos, and the Candace Owens of Latinos, because the Koch brothers is his primary financier. But you have to manufacture consent. In order to do that, you have to establish a narrative. In order to have a compelling narrative, there has to be a cut and dry protagonist and a cut and dry antagonists. So we oversimplify these issues in our history books, and it's the worst thing that's ever happened to Americans, because we think in this very Hegelian dialectic way where it's either A or B. It's A or B. It can't be anything in between, because we were taught if it's not A, then it's B. Okay? If it's a capitalism, it must be communism. If it is a communism, it must be capitalism. Why can't we just have a mixed economy and shut the fuck up? Why do we have to name everything? Because if we discuss nuance, well then that would require teaching critical thinking. Whoa there, cowboy. You can't teach critical thinking in schools, because then people might figure out that America is full of shit. I can't stress to people enough how important for it is, and I hope that you all take this and go forward with it. But so somebody said, I just glanced at this. Why are so many Cubans in Miami anti-communist and anti-Castro? I'm gonna tell you a little secret that people from Miami might not know. A lot of people don't, because that's what, it's the world. It's the world we live in. It's the same thing that a lot of people who aren't from Miami might not know about Venezuelans. That's because all of the Cubans in Miami are white, and they came from rich families. Not all of them, but 98% of them. They ran their asses over here because not necessarily this generation, but their grandparents, or sometimes in some cases, their great-grandparents were benefiting from the United States military-industrial complex and what we here know as the sugar cartel that, of course, Debbie Wasserman Schultz has a lot of money from. That was what was running Cuba at the time. So in order to have had political power, you had to be in bed with the United States. In order to have had land, you had to be in bed with the United States. In order to have had any type of wealth, you had to be in bed with the United States. Businesses, you had to be in bed with the United States. And so, when you take into account that every Cuban, you know what happened? You already know what the wet foot, dry foot, right? Hey, y'all, don't tell people what really happened over there. We'll give you grants. We'll give you business loans. We'll give you amnesty and make you a citizen. Just promise you'll vote Republican. We don't care what else you do. Just vote Republican and don't tell a damn soul what happened over there. If anybody asked, you don't like Fidel because he's communist. But you know what they don't talk about? Once again, they don't talk about who came before Fidel Castro. That was Bautista. And Bautista was a communist too. That's right. And Bautista, one of the primary reasons he lost power, had something to do with the U.S. imperialism side, of course. But what does the United States and Great Britain love more, seemingly, than money? That's right. Racial segregation. And that was the hill that Batista decided to die on. Because even as times were a-changing, he decided he still wanted to keep black Cubans segregated from white Cubans. Not only when it comes to the type of business ownership and things like that, but monetarily as well, politically as well. And so when Fidel showed up, he didn't have to say shit really, but I won't be a racist dickhead. Follow me. We can take this guy down. Boom. It was that easy. And you know how you know it was that easy? Because look it up yourself. How much of a percentage is Cuba now? How much of a percentage of Cuba is black? 70% of Cuba is black. And if you ask any Cuban within the last 5 years who have moved from Cuba to the United States, they almost despise the Cubans who came here 10 to 15 years before them, because they're uppity. Because it's like the Venezuelans who had the ability to move to the United States as well. They were the white rich ones. So With Fidel, good, bad, or indifferent, I don't know him personally, but I do know this. His story is not as black and white as people would like to think it is. I do know that they have a 99% literacy rate in Cuba now, despite being part of a Western embargo that cut them completely off from any resources that they could have gotten from the United States or its allies. I do know that they discovered the cure for lung cancer and put it in an inhaler. I do know that they have one of the most progressive legislatures in the world, 50% male, 50% female. I do know that they have the best medical school in the world by bar none. I do know that, where everybody around the world tries to get into that medical school in Havana. I do know they have been able to make cars run, the same damn cars from 1930 run just as well as they did in 1930. And I do know that while all that's happening, 70% of their population is black. So if you look at the parallels, I wouldn't really compare it more. I wouldn't compare it as much with Maduro as much as Hugo Chavez. When Hugo Chavez came into power, who was the ones causing the problems? Who were they tied to? White rich people who were tied to the United States. And all the mestizos and the indigenous and the black Venezuelans were like, well, this is a clear choice. Don't got to think much about this. We're going to go hang out with that guy. Is that cool? Appreciate it. We're going to hang out with the guy who doesn't want to segregate us and who doesn't want to bend over to the United States. And of course, Hugo Chavez in our history books was immediately villainized and demonized. Because the moment you won't be demonized in our history books unless you have spoken up for working class. I mean, unless it's like some egregious thing, like obviously Hitler was a damn Nazi. So that was like, okay, I guess we got to put him in there. Stalin did commit a genocide. Granted, he did do a lot for the working class before he went completely out of his damn mind. He was a genocidal maniac. But Che Guevara was not, Fidel Castro was not, Hugo Chavez was not, Nelson Mandela, we only tell about one side of the story. We don't talk about the fact that we were the reason that he was in jail, that we are the reason that the apartheid did exist, that our companies were profiting off of the apartheid and were. We don't talk about the fact that Fidel Castro actually tried to compensate our oligarchy for the land that he took back from Batista. We don't talk about that because we have to have a clear antagonist, and we have to always paint the United States as a clear protagonist if we are ever going to manufacture consent to go to war, like we did with World War I. And I'm just going to bring up this last point. Man, it's hot. Woo! Y'all, look, it's hot, y'all. But I'm going to talk about World War I, for example. In case you did not know, World War I, this might be some breaking news for a lot of you, and I always forget this as I commonly talk about it. Or casually talk about it. So Germany actually wasn't the bad guy in World War I. They weren't. They just happened to be growing way too fast. And so was Russia. And it was in Great Britain did not like the competition. And the details of that are a different story for a different day. But they did not like the competition. So Great Britain teamed up with the oligarchs of the United States. They got Woodrow Wilson elected, despite the fact that Woodrow Wilson was actually unpopular. But they convinced Theodore Roosevelt to run again under the Bull Moose Party. And Rothschild and J.P. Morgan, Lord Rothschild and J.P. Morgan funded the Bull Moose Party in order to split the Republican vote. Because at that point, if you all recall, the Republicans were the ones who were anti-war. And also, Woodrow Wilson is an idiot. He was easy to control, easy to manipulate. He was an idiot. So they let Woodrow Wilson run out his first 4 years by saying we'll never go fight in their war, as in Europe's war, right? Because we had never done anything like that. But the entire time over in Europe, they were manufacturing consent by blaming Germany for everything. And then they knocked on the door. Hey, JP Morgan, JP, I need you to get your people in Woodrow's ear and tell him it's about that time. Because he won his second term by not going to war. So guess what they usually do next, as we've seen throughout history? He went to war. That's what he did. And he went to war by making up lie after lie after lie about Germany's supposed aggressions. And the biggest lie that we come to find out later on down the line was that the Lusitania had a bunch of American tourists who were just traveling to Europe for tourism during a world war or during a huge war that was happening in Europe. However, we come to find out that weapons was a cargo, or that ship was a cargo ship full of weapons. That was declassified, I want to say, about 10 years ago. So that was a lie. So the entire reason we jumped into the World War was a lie. And let's be honest, people, if you were educated here in the United States, I'm pretty sure anyone who was actually paying attention during history class, when they said, because it was like World War II, it seemed pretty clear. It seemed pretty cut and dry. Hitler was a damn madman, and also Pearl Harbor got bombed. So yeah, we got to be there. The only question in World War II at the time was, why did it take so long for us to join if they were literally massacring an entire group of people? However, in World War I, we were told something a little bit more obscure and a little bit more abstract, and we still never got an answer to it to this day. Ask your teacher. If you're young and you're in high school, if you're watching, there's not that many of you, there's a few of you. If you're in high school and you're watching this, ask your teacher this, your history teacher. Say, why do we go to World War I? And you know what they're going to tell you? I wanted somebody in the comment section going to tell you. But they'll say, because of the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. And they go, that is the hill that they will die on. If you ask your teacher, well, hold up, that don't make no sense. What they always say is, well, just know it for the test. No. Hell, damn all that. Ask them again. Why the hell did World War I start over Archduke Franz Ferdinand? Okay, was Archduke Franz Ferdinand the heir to the German throne or something? Well, nah. Well, was he going to be the next Tsar of Russia? Well, no, that's not actually it either. Is he part of the British royal family? What the hell happened? Well, no, that's not it either. Well, what is it? Who is he? He's the Archduke of Austria. You mean to tell me that there was an entire world war started between which was initiated between Great Britain and Germany because the Archduke of Austria was assassinated? Somebody had some splaining to do. And the truth of the matter is, it's because everything we've learned about World War I was a lie. And that was the very first world war where both Great Britain and the United States had begun to learn how to manufacture consent. And in fact, whenever the New York Times was worth a damn around 1902, they were actually warning people about Cecil Rhodes and JP Morgan and Rothschild. They were saying, we need to wake up. Look at what's happening. They're trying to send us into war and they're lying to people. Now, here's what's even crazier about that. Listen, people, it's scary. Because this is why I get so pissed when people are like, let's qualify every statement we make about Venezuela with Maduro's a dictator. Every statement we make about Syria with Assad's a dictator. You know, that's what they always say. It's always been that. This is why I get so pissed. Because here's what you got to understand, people. That war was the testing ground. They said, I'm going to use my resources to get the media under control. I need you to use your resources to get the military behind you. I think it was JP Morgan? JP Morgan, I believe, was it worked with Wilson to create the Fed? And because of World War I, 20,000 millionaires and billionaires were created. 20,000. In America, people. In America. Subsequently, they created an advisory board specifically to make sure that we were in a wartime economy. The same wartime economy that we're currently in. That's how the Bush family got their fortune. We always like to think of them as an oil family, but that's how the Bush family got their fortune. Now, here's where it gets fucked up. This is why it's so important to discuss what manufacturing consent will lead to. We now know, as I just told you, Germany didn't do shit. We completely crippled their economy. We castrated their military. We murdered millions of them for defending themselves just because they were becoming economically superior to Great Britain. Not even to the US, but to Great Britain. We were doing fine when it came to industrialization. And because there was a name that one Hitler could associate with and blame, named Rothschild, he could automatically associate the religion with Rothschild because Rothschild was a quote-unquote Ashkenazi Jew. And they did know that, factually speaking, the Fed was owned, or their national banks were owned by Rothschild. The austerity put on and the sanctions put on Germany was led by all of his money. So then he got to demonize an entire religion. And that led, obviously, to the Holocaust. And in 1915 to 1920, you know what? They didn't have as much access to information. They didn't have the internet. They didn't have social media. And the powers that be establish authority, use it to manufacture consent. Millions of lives were then lost, obviously, in World War I. But then an entire group of men, women, and children who weren't soldiers, they were bystanders. An entire group was massacred because of America not failing or not recognizing when there was an attempt to manufacture consent to go to war. So now you all can kind of understand why I get so peeved when someone tries to say that somebody's a dictator. Don't argue with them. Why can't we call them a dictator? No, I will not echo, nor will I put up with anyone else echoing any smear, any piece of propaganda that's parroted by the mainstream, unless you have 100% proof of what you were saying. And even then, I'm probably still going to be skeptical. Because one thing that I've been to the Holocaust Museum. Woo! That museum will send you into tears. But the one thing that I never left understanding, and I asked this, I've been 3 times, and I ask this every time I go, and nobody ever has an answer for me. Why was Hitler able to organize around the idea that Jews were to blame for all of their problems? That made no sense. That's not how the human mind works. That's not how group psychology works. There has to be a catalyst. You can't just have a scapegoat. There has to be a reason behind why they thought that the Jewish community was a scapegoat. But that's why we never learned that, because then you have to reconcile with the fact that America and the Rothschilds and Cecil Rhodes were the reason that millions of Jewish people died. That's why we have to stand up when they try and manufacture consent. All right. So that was a lot, y'all. We got a little bit deep there. I don't know why y'all let me go that far down the rabbit hole, man. Look. So that was supposed to be a 20-minute that's supposed to be a 20-minute segment, y'all. It's this I have a lot of friends from a lot of different places, and it's upsetting how many friends have like been affected by the United States. You know, I'm at home. The biggest thing, like the most important thing that I worried about as a kid was, when I was older, was about, living in the hood and all the things that come with that. When I was younger, it was about keeping food on the table. Maybe I didn't eat as much as I wanted to that night. I never had to worry about a bomb dropping on my house. I didn't have to worry about some random guy saying that he's the president now. Those are the things that we take for granted. And that's why I think it's important that we make it our mission to hold our government accountable in those situations. All right. So, what we got next? So, Tulsi Gabbard received another huge endorsement, and it seems like the endorsements keep on rolling, which is a great thing. And in this particular case, I think this endorsement is a little bit more significant, and the reason why is because of who it came from and what that particular person represents, not only when it comes to economic policy, but foreign policy as well. Let's take a listen.
Some of the presidential candidates, if Trump is going to be the standard bearer for the Republicans, what do you think about the Democratic candidates right now? Who do you like and who do you not like?
Well, there's a lot of choices there. If you said, I'm going to give you a quiz, Ron, I want you to name all 20, I'd say, no, just give me a D-. Tulsi Gabbard is by far the very, very best. And she's very, very liberal when it comes to economics. We probably wouldn't agree with too much on economics, but she is good on the foreign policy. She does not want these engagements, which is an economic issue. We'd save a lot of money, by not being engaged like this. But she's the most intelligent and would be the best. If we had to pick one of them to be our president, I think she would be giving us the best chance for bringing about peace.
Y'all, that was the original LIB. When I say he was the original libertarian before it was co-opted by the Koch brothers, okay? In this little crazy libertarian party that we have now. The Koch brothers who swear they don't like war but are trying to institute regime change in Venezuela right now, just stay out of foreign policy. But what they mean by stay out of foreign policy is don't pay attention to what we're doing with the United States foreign policy. The same Koch brothers, by the way, who are like, we're libertarian and we hate big government. So we're going to spend $900 million on buying off both parties and then have those politicians do whatever we can to have that big government fighting regime change wars because we hate big government because they ruin things that we pay them to ruin. Yeah, before they became that libertarian party, and by the way, the reason they decided to go with libertarian was because of how popular Ron Paul was back in the day. That man has a soul of gold. A Ron Paul endorsement says a few things about Tulsi Gabbard, in my opinion. These are people who are not politically invested in the success of any of the candidates. Any of them. Let me explain what I mean. Is Ron Paul looking for a job on Kamala Harris's administration? Is Ron Paul looking for a job on Bernie Sanders' campaign? Does Ron Paul have any personal beef with Joe Biden? You get my point? Is he, is whatever way we vote, for example, going to affect the outcome of Ron Paul's life? Probably not at this point. I think Ron Paul's okay. I think he's doing pretty fine. That is significant. That means he has observed and made a decision in a vacuum of, objectively speaking, who is the most representative of the best interests of the United States and the people within it and those abroad as well. Who is the best option for peace? And the OG, the original LIB, Ron Paul, said that is Tulsi Gabbard. Now, there are a lot of people who have said things like, well, Andrew Yang has cross appeal, which he does. But I don't know. If you're asking me personally, who has more cross appeal? Andrew Yang or the woman who got the original LIB to endorse her? Who has more cross appeal? Andrew Yang or the woman who got Joe Rogan to endorse her? In all seriousness, who has more cross appeal? Andrew Yang amongst progressives, or the one who pulled the original first black Bernie bro, which is myself, who I was compelled after talking to her to endorse her. This, and I know this isn't going to change anybody. Well, it'll change some libertarian minds for sure. But this endorsement says so much, because this is like maybe the third or fourth endorsement at this point where the people who were not politically, like they could not politically benefit from any of the candidates winning, the Ron Pauls, the Jill Steins, people like Joe Rogan, like Lee Stranahan back in Fault Lines Radio off of Sputnik, and a plethora of other people we haven't even gotten to go down. Mike Gravel, another example. The people who are not making and thinking in political calculations, they're not thinking about what about the delegates and what about the DNC. They're not thinking about any of that stuff. They're like, who is objectively the best candidate? And they're all the same ones who last election endorsed Bernie are saying that now that was the best option in 2016. Or I'm going to say best option, the best candidate. Because the best option is depending on who you are, right? I won't say that was the best candidate in 2016. But objectively, in a vacuum, political calculations and political self-interest aside, this is the best candidate that y'all have on the field. That is massive. All the people who endorse Bernie, the big ones that are kind of like, some of them are a little bit left-leaning, some of them are a little bit right-leaning, but overall, they just want peace first, and we can argue about the other details later. Those candidates all those people are like dogpiling on Tulsi right now. Despite the smears, despite the attacks. In fact, They probably thinking like, yeah, if they're attacking her, Ron Paul knows better than anybody, right? If they're attacking her like that, probably, most likely, it's because they fear her like they feared myself. Speaking from Ron Paul's perspective. That's a big deal. I mean, that's literally, it's Jill Stein, people. The left of the left. Ron Paul, the original LIB. Joe Rogan. Myself. And look, Mike Gravel. The original the original PROG. The OG of progressivism. Mike Gravel, Mr. Pentagon Papers himself. Hey, I don't know. You know, I don't know what else to tell people. I said that I always tell people, like I'm in a group chat with the rest of the MCSC network, and we joke all the time because every time we see another endorsement, we always I'll be sending the train emoji, and I say choo choo. Somebody else just jumped on the Tulsi train. Cause somebody else is gonna get full. That bandwagon, we got some more room in the caboose if some of y'all trying to jump on. That's all I'm saying. And I've been noticing something, people. Oh, Jimmy Dore. Thank you. I just saw that. Glance across my screen. Jimmy Dore. Another one. Jimmy Dore was the first one. He endorsed her before I did. Jimmy Dore made his mind up hella early. And if Jimmy, how often has Jimmy been on the wrong side of the issue? The wrong side, objectively. I don't care if you don't like his delivery. I don't care if you don't like him. When has Jimmy been on the wrong side of the issue? When has he been factually wrong? Factually. When has Ron Paul been factually wrong? When has Jill Stein been factually on the wrong side of a major issue? I want you all to start noticing something. I want you to go check out other videos with Tulsi Gabbard. Okay, Gabbard. Stop calling her Gabbard. I keep calling her Gabbard because it's an old habit. And I want you to go look at some of the other YouTube commentators and look at what videos are the most popular of theirs now over the last 2 to 3 weeks. I want you to go to Google Fox News videos with Tulsi in them, and you look at the comment section. Google MSNBC videos with them, and you look at the comment section. It isn't as cut and dry. I'm telling you, I was there from the beginning when it came to Bernie Sanders' campaign. I was there at its inception. I was there working when people were telling us, you have no chance. You don't even have a name. How can you beat somebody with so much name recognition? And I'll tell you, at the time, in May of 2016, remember, the Hillary information didn't come out until around January of the next year. In May, it was just that, because nobody ever votes, by the way, off of a negative consequence. They vote because they believe something will be in it for them. We didn't really care about Hillary's problems as much as we appreciated who Bernie Sanders was. That's why he was so successful so early. And they were blacking him out so early. Now, we're seeing something a little bit different this time because before, in the beginning of May 2015, when around the time Bernie first announced, they were just blacking him out. And, now May of 20, or when she first announced was in January, they openly attacked her while simultaneously trying to pretend she was irrelevant. Think about that. How is she irrelevant? How is she only at 1%, but yet you feel like you have to invest your labor dollars, your internet clicks? Daily Kos sent out an entire email. Everybody, David Pakman opened up with a smear video of her, but she's irrelevant. How is she irrelevant, but also you gotta attack her? You know who's irrelevant? Kirsten Gillibrand. I haven't had to make a video about her because it would literally be a waste of my time. And she has real issues. But Kirsten Gillibrand ain't going to affect a damn soul in this election. And if you've noticed, no one else has wasted time on Kirsten Gillibrand either. And yet, some of the commentators, like David Pakman, would like to call Tulsi Gabbard irrelevant and then attack her at the same time. Interesting. Don't you love how these people work? But because of that, it's easy to tell who they are most scared of, and that was what originally made me start thinking, like, am I making my decisions about this election based off of wanting to be the winner, based off political calculations? Am I allowing myself as a journalist or am I allowing democracy to prevail, or am I trying to make political calculations based off of what I think will be the next step in democracy, whatever that may be for the progressive movement? Because if that's what I was doing, I would be saying a lot of the things that a lot of these people say, right? I would have backed Bernie, and I would have been doing my videos of Tulsi, be like, wow, she would be look at these videos where she is the best on these issues completely and totally. She's the absolute best. And she would make a great vice president and secretary of state for Bernie. That's not right. That is not allowing democracy to prevail. That's projection, and it is trying to qualify an achievement, a presidential feat, as something less than that. And that's not right, in my humble opinion. Especially when we have seen what happened the last election. And that, once again, people kind of tend to forget. They always say, well, Bernie's perfect on all the issues. Bernie's not. Well, for one, foreign policy, like, he's not. He admitted it. But also, he's not perfect on the issues. Damn all that stupid race stuff. Like, he has a blind spot on race, but like, he's an old white dude, whatever. That's kind of the thing. It's a thing that he should work on. I'm sure he would work on. But at the end of the day, I know he would pass policies that would benefit minorities. There's other issues that Bernie has. There's other problematic votes that he's had. And his history is nowhere near spotless. However, because he was our only hope at the time, they were never brought up. He's not perfect, like Tulsi wasn't perfect and isn't perfect. Like Nina isn't perfect. Me and Nina, we talked before the election, and we were talking about how they expect progressives who are waking up in this new era of progressivism to have never had a past unless they were just newly elected. That's not the case. All three of them have their issues. So we can weigh what somebody might have did 40, 30, 20 years ago and say, well, that person is the promised one. But it's not about that, in my humble opinion. I need to know, the destination is nice, right? If I'm flying from Miami to LA, you're going to get to LA? Okay, but when am I get there? Oh, you just don't worry about it. Trust me, we've done this before. You're going to start in Miami, and I promise you'll end in LA. We've done it for 40 years. No. But I have to be at an event by tomorrow at 7 a.m. Are you going to get me there? You might not get there this time, but you'll get there next time. No. What you mean next time? Trust me, we've been flying to LA for 40 years. You'll get there. That's not what I'm asking you. I need to understand how we get there. I need a pilot or a conductor to understand the best way to get there and to demonstrate the logic and the consistency of such to show me that we will get there continuously every single time, no matter what destination. So say LA is foreign policy, New York is domestic policy, Seattle is the military industrial complex. I don't gotta guess which way Tulsi is going to take. I know because she showed that she understands what's going on. She's going to take the best path every single time. Not necessarily the path of least resistance, because the path of least resistance isn't necessarily the best path. She's going to take the best path, point blank, period. And I don't have to guess that. For example, there are a lot, like somebody asked me today actually on Instagram. They said, well, do you think that Tulsi will hold war criminals accountable? And although I don't know the 100% answer to that, I can tell you this. I unfortunately know that Bernie will not. The war criminals like Bolton, like Mattis, like Hillary, they're going to walk off scot-free. With Tulsi, because I understand her logic, if there is something that is brought to her attention, it's going to get dealt with. The scariest thing for the entire military, foreign policy establishment, the United States political establishment, corporations like the oligarchs on Wall Street, the scariest thing for them is going to be the initial briefing that she will undergo as the president. Because heads are going to roll. Why? Because she's the only one on Twitter literally adding politicians who are bending over to Saudi Arabia. She called Trump a whole bitch on Twitter. That was before she was running for president. So I don't have to guess I don't know what form the accountability will take, but I don't have to guess if when Tulsi is presented with information that she will act on it. I don't have to wonder because she's done it consistently. And that brings, for the first time, even since, once again, I still support Bernie. Don't get it twisted. I do. But I'm trying to help draw the distinction because I don't like when people say, she's basically real. Like she's just, riding Bernie's wave and taking some of the water. No, bruh. At this point, when people are saying, well, yeah, Tulsi can keep Bernie in check when it comes to some issues. Well, maybe Bernie can talk to Tulsi about foreign policy. Do you hear how many times we've been having Tulsi can take the lead on Assange and Bernie, so he can stay quiet about it. And okay, when you have to say that not once, not twice, not three times, no. She's not in his lane anymore. He is trying to get to his goal by, what do they say? When you ride behind the tread of another vehicle when it's raining, because you don't want a hydroplane. Tulsi is the vehicle in front right now, and Bernie's doing this behind it while Tulsi's taking all the hail, all the rain, got the windshield wipers going 100 miles per hour. And that water that she is riding on is untreaded. She could hydroplane at any moment, but she doesn't care. As long as she's going to get the passengers, which are the United States citizens, to the right destination. And it's I know some people don't like it, And I feel like it's people are taking all of this way too personal, because when I tell you that people really don't get that a week and a half before I endorsed Tulsi, a week and a half before she came on to my show, and people who have been here for a while know I did a 20-minute video critiquing Tulsi for something she said. 20 minutes. That's longer than any video I've ever done critiquing Bernie at that point. And I've critiqued Bernie on a few videos, but not for 20 minutes straight with a detailed breakdown. But it's because my critique of you depends on the standard that you set for yourself. And she set a standard that was so ridiculously high at that point that I had to. And guess what? You know why I endorsed her? Because she watched the video. By the way, I know for a fact she did. And guess, objectively, she didn't see any disagreements with what I said. Or at least none that were crazy. And she still appreciated the fact that I was objective. My entire endorsement of her, and like still to this day, is objective. It is based on objectivity. If I felt like she wasn't objectively the best candidate, I would rescind that shit so fast. But it's getting to the point, y'all, listen. 2 days ago, I posted a video. What was it? It was it about Venezuela? It was about Venezuela. Y'all, when I tell you, I posted the video, I said, this is the only presidential candidate who got Venezuela correct. Man, people in the comment section, yeah, I haven't watched the video yet, but I know it's Tulsi. On Twitter, I'm going to watch it later, but I know it's Tulsi. It's Tulsi, isn't it? It's Tulsi. I knew it was Tulsi. Of course it was Tulsi. Like, when we are at the point, where somebody posts a video and says this is the only presidential candidate to have gotten this particular issue correct, and this isn't the first time that I've posted a video like that, nor am I the only one, or this is the second time, this is like the third or fourth time, and everybody is responding, it's Tulsi, isn't it? It's Tulsi, isn't it? It's Tulsi, isn't it? Maybe we should be reconsidering who should be the front runner. When the big names in politics, podcasting, YouTube, whatever, who aren't politically invested in the success of any particular candidate, who are saying in a vacuum, this is the best person y'all have. What the hell are y'all doing? It's maybe we should be considering who's the front runner, who should be the front runner. When you have the entire establishment, people's logic is weird. They're like, I want to support her, but the DNC won't let her win. They'll never let her win. When you feel that way about it, because then what they're also saying is, in my humble opinion, simultaneously is they'll let Bernie win. Because let's be honest, if Bernie has capitulated so much that the DNC would let him win, because that's people's logic a lot of the time now. If Bernie has capitulated so much that the DNC would let him win, is that the same Bernie that we supported in 2016? As far as the perception of him being so far outside of the establishment that we know that unequivocally he will represent our interests. Is that the same? Because it's one thing if you're saying Bernie will put together such an infrastructure that we will fight and continue to fight until he is absolutely the nominee. We understand the fight we're going to have to put up, because then you wouldn't be able to make the argument they won't let Tulsi win. Because we know they're not going to let Tulsi win. But I thought that we were under the same understanding that they weren't going to let Bernie win either. So we need to figure out the best candidate and move from there. But that's not what's being said. They're saying they won't let her win. So so they're going to let Bernie win? I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know how I feel about that. Now, we got to fight. If we have to fight, not to the death, but we got to fight tooth and nail to make sure that Bernie wins once we get to that convention, that's a different discussion that we have to have. Because I'm like, oh, I'm reassured a little bit. But if your argument is they're going to let Bernie win, then you need to reconsider why you supported Bernie to begin with. Because that Bernie, I know Niko from 2016, if I heard the DNC is going to allow, I don't give a damn how many donations he has or how many volunteers he has. Granted, I'm not stupid. I know they're not going to let Bernie win at this point. I'm aware of this. They're not going to let him win. It is going to be a fight for Tulsi and Bernie, which is why I still support Bernie. I'm aware of it. That's why they ran Biden. They say, oh, shit. We tried everything else. Let's try old white man. We tried black Indian prosecutor. We tried coked up senator Beto. We tried super young gay military guy. Let's try old white man. That's the last option we have left. And if that don't work, we don't know. So they're trying to stop him from winning. Got that. But I'm talking about you need to look into yourself, reflect on your integrity and why you supported Bernie originally, and say if you were making the excuse that you support Bernie because they're going to let him win and they won't let Tulsi, she has no chance of winning. Why? Because they were not going to let her win. What? Okay, that's that. Then why shouldn't we should all be behind her? What the fuck do you mean? That's the person that we need to be behind. If you are saying to me from everything I've learned, because that's what they said about AOC. Do y'all remember that? Because Joe Crowley was insanely insanely powerful. They didn't let AOC win. You can feel whatever way you want to feel about her. I think she's a little bit politically naive. Yeah, I think she has some ego that is guiding her right now. But when she was running for office, she was a former Green Party activist. She was a damn bartender. Her manager, who I know was a former Green Party activist. They put boots on goddamn ground and marched their ass to every door multiple times. Joe Crowley ain't let her win shit. And he tried to downplay it. I don't know if I saw that Kokolinsky video. He tried to downplay it. Because he knows he didn't let her win. She took that shit from him. And it was because, despite that, obviously it's not another progressive running, but despite that, the idea, even the thought that Joe Crowley thought that he had control over who the hell he was going to let win, everybody was galvanized because you don't dictate the outcome of our elections, Joe Crowley. You don't dictate the outcome of our elections, Tom Perez, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, DCCC, DSCC. We do. We dictate the outcome of our elections. And I'll be damned if you tell me somebody doesn't have a chance because they're not popular, because they're not on message, because their policies suck, then yeah, we can have a discussion about that. But you're not going to tell, bro, I'm a competitive ass motherfucker too. If you tell me who don't got a chance to win, if you tell me that, then all of a sudden I'm like, okay, we gonna see. That's hell, y'all don't even know. Originally, before I got woke, that was the original reason I joined Bernie's campaign, because I was like, yo, man, you sure we should be doing this? Because this dude only has like a 2% chance of winning, and there's in the same situation, dead ass, a 5% margin of error, which basically means he don't have a chance to win according to all the polls right now. And he's like, I mean, yeah, but he look at his policies, and they're going to keep saying he doesn't have a chance to win, but we think we can do it. And I was like, all right. And now I'm fully invested. I barely knew Bernie, but when when I found out I'm playing for the right team, right, and then you tell me that he don't have a chance to win, and you can't give me a reason, it's because you are invested in somebody else winning, and I don't want to hear shit you got to say. You are now the competition. And when it comes to these progressive policies, when it comes to progressivism in the movement in general, I don't have time for that is the worst excuse. She doesn't have a chance. Kiss my ass. I'll see you in Wisconsin. That's what the Democratic National Convention is. Don't ask me why. 35 open primary states. Many of those states are Republican dominated. Many of those states have a lot of constituents that Trump personally screwed over, and so did the Republicans. And all of those open and semi-open primary states don't have another option to vote for in the Republican primary. But they do have one in the Democratic primary. And I heard those Republicans, they love them some military folk, some veterans. I heard them Republicans, those Rust Belters, if you will, they love them a fighter. Y'all keep playing. This is why we move people left. I critiqued Tulsi because I wanted her to move further left. I critiqued Tulsi the other day on prison reform. I said, I understand her logic, but I disagree with her. But I think we should do both at the same time. We should address prison. We should address the election reform. We should address prison reform. And we should still be upholding the right to vote, because we need to move people left. If you don't move your candidate left and you think being quiet while your candidate, no matter what candidate that may be, that's why I love the interview with Mike Figueredo and Andrew Yang. Mike was not bowing down to Andrew Yang on Medicare for All. He like, hold up, we're not about to jet past this. He's like, why aren't you starting? He said, okay, say if you negotiate Medicare for public option, don't you want to start at Medicare for All? Because we know it's going to be a negotiation anyway. At least start at the highest bar. And all of a sudden Andrew was like, oh, okay, I guess you're right. But that's what you have to do. If your candidate is going to call themselves part of the left, call themselves a progressive, call themselves an outsider, then it's time to start pushing your candidates left. It's that simple. So I hope that you all were tuned in for that segment, because we about this segment, everything in the latter half. This is why it's important for you all to tune into the live streams. Everything in the latter half of this video is not going to be public after I get off of here. So if you were here for it, you were here for it. I'll leave it up for about another couple of hours, and after that, I'll upload the clips. But this is the stuff that you got to be in here for the live stream for. The war room. And I'm extremely happy that you all you tuned in. So make sure that you subscribe if you have not. Make sure you donate to Tulsi Gabbard's campaign if you have not done so yet. She needs 100,000. We're trying to secure her spot, not for the first two debates, but definitely for the debates after. But also, if there are 20 candidates in the Democratic debate, like a 20 more make, or 20 total make it, then they're going to move the goalposts. And she assured me, and other people on her campaign did, and in an email she did, they need to make sure that they have 100,000 donations, because obviously it's not only about the donations but about the support as well, the verifiable support. So if we need to put up any fight to get her onto the debates, we can say, you have this person into the debates, but she has 100,000 donations. How the hell does that equal more support? You get what I'm saying? So, hey, let's do it. 100,000 donations. Make sure that you're subscribed. Hold on, we have a quick little super chat. YouTubers Gail Cord and Save America vote Tulsi are former, now voting Tulsi. I feel like that was supposed to be better written, but I'm gonna guess you're saying they're former Trump supporters, and now they're voting Tulsi. And yeah, low key, as in all seriousness, I do believe Hassan Piker is a joke. I'm not gonna lie. I don't mind the guy, but I just don't think that he's in this for the same reasons as everybody else. It's nothing personal, but y'all know I'm very protective of this movement. And I don't like when people try to pretend to be authorities on the movement when he's not. You think that Hassan Piker cares, legitimately cares one way or the other how everything turns out? He would love more material for the show that his uncle gave him. And that's a fact. So, I said, it's no beef. I don't have a personal problem with him, but I just, I call a spade, man. I call a spade. I don't. That's one of the things that I love about Kyle. Like, I know, like I said, y'all know my theory. Like, the way the progressive YouTube world works is like Kyle is in the middle. To the left of him, you have like Jimmy Dore, myself, Tim Black, Kim Iverson, and a few others. And then to the right of him, there's some other people. To the right of him, those people aren't activists. They're not organizers. They're not invested in the success of this movement. They didn't go to school for politics, nor have they ever participated in politics. They all went to school for journalism. They saw a lane on YouTube, and they took it because it's monetarily beneficial for them. Jimmy got out of traditional comedy. Jimmy stopped touring for a while, and this is what he focused because he's so. Like I said, Jimmy. When Jimmy gets going, he's gone. You can't stop him. And Ron and Stephanie just sit back like this, like, oh shit, y'all done got him started. because he is passionate about these issues. Tim, same thing, passionate about these issues. Obviously myself, gave up law school. Full ride and then some. I would have been straight. My mom was pissed when I gave up law school. But this needed to be done. And Kyle, when he started Justice Democrats, regardless of whether or not I agreed with every one of the outcomes of Justice Democrats, Kyle started, when he explained it on the interview that we did, that he had really good intentions. And he said, I'm tired of sitting on the sidelines. And until the others, stop sitting on the sidelines while they're trying to coach. Like, my thing is, how you gonna be the captain of a team on a sport that you ain't never played in before? You feel me? Like when Jank and Anna try to play that, listen to us, echo the same narrative as us, or you're not a real progressive. When David Pakman talks about Jimmy Dore as a useful idiot, when Sam Cedar pontificates from behind his desk and feeds us rhetorical Z-Quill about what we should believe, bro, y'all have never been involved in politics. You have no idea how this shit works. You don't even know these people. You interview them from a distance, excuse me. That's not the same thing. Nor should you be able to shame anybody when they don't agree with you, when you don't know what the hell is going on. You never talk to these people. And you're not an activist to them and tell them how they should or should not feel about any particular issue, as far as like the narratives are concerned. Because like I said, there's a reason that the Russiagate narrative died, and they tried to resurrect it because, let's be honest, the ratings were dropping. Nobody cared. Russiagate is not a major voting issue for anybody. But you know what is a major voting issue for a lot of people? Julian Assange. And once again, there goes that qualifier that we be hearing from a lot of these people, right? Well, I know that Julian... That's how I feel about it. So with that being said, people, thank you all so much for tuning into this live stream segment of Mi Casa es Su Casa. Please help donate to our Patreon account. The link is in the description below. You can donate by going to www.patreon.com/Mi Casa es Su Casa. We're trying to hit 500 patrons. We're getting there. I think we're at 300 right now. I think we're at 300 patrons on Patreon. You can literally donate. Come in and do live shows literally all day, constant production. So that's the next big goal for us.